o'clock, and we'll call the Barron County Board of Supervisors for Monday, January 22nd, 2024 into order, and have roll call. Public notification. So we got 28 present and 1 absent, and that's Marv Thompson. And Marv is down in the Dells running a meeting. He was actually going to be on if he needed to be, but since he's chairing a meeting down there, we called him off. So, but he would have been here for us. Anyway, public notification.
I, Wendy Coleman, my executive assistant, has complied with Wisconsin open meeting requirements. Meeting agendas have been posted on electronic meeting notice boards located on the first and second floor of the Government Center. On the first floor of the Justice Center, a hard copy of the meeting agenda has been posted in the county clerk's office, and she's verified the proper posting of this meeting. This is with the amended agenda that was posted on the 18th at 3:19 p.m.
Okay. And then item number 2, our chaplain Cody Vargas, who everybody knows is our Maranatha pastor, as well as the head of our law enforcement and a lot of other duties. So thank you, Cody.
Good morning. If you join me in a word of prayer. Father, we come to you this morning. We thank you for our great county and great country. Lord, I pray that you be with our farmers as they deal with this unique winter. Many of them are glad because they don't have to deal with the freezing temperatures. But yet we don't have a lot of moisture, so we pray that you would help us in those areas. Lord, we thank you for our law enforcement. We are grateful for the men and women who care for us day and night. We pray for their protection, and we thank you for their families that support them, and we as a county support them in many ways. And Father, I just pray for this meeting, that you guide it, give everyone wisdom as they are a part of different committees, as they care for our county. But also, Lord, if need be, give us divine wisdom as we need to have mercy and care for those around us. So guide us, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 3, special matters. Just what Jeff had in the packet, that Supervisor Jerry McRoberts will no longer be on the board with us, and we just want to thank him for all his years of service. Item number 4, approve the agenda. Now, before, what I'd like to do is remove item number 8. I believe all of you received an email from our county administrator this weekend, which had some changes to, which is item number 10 on our agenda. So we're looking to maybe postpone that. So the presentation on item number 8 by the Housing Authority will be taken up in a later matter when we actually take up that resolution. So I guess what I'm asking is to approve the agenda and delete item number 8. Motion by Supervisor Olson, seconded by Supervisor Wenzel. Any concerns with the agenda? Not, let's vote. I must be doing something wrong here.
We need Lance. Thanks, Lance.
You gonna call on Brandon?
We're waiting on Banks and Langman. Fran, did you approve? Okay.
You left your iPad at home, John. Okay, we got passed by majority vote, 28 yes and 1 absent. Okay, item number 5, appointment and oath of office for Craig Fowler, our new, soon-to-be new District 19 supervisor. Craig, could you come up by our county clerk, please?
Yes, I am.
All right, I'm gonna have you raise your right hand. Put something behind it so I can actually read it. I, Craig Fowler,
I, Craig Fowler,
having been appointed to the County Board of Supervisors in District Number 19,
having been appointed to the County Board of Supervisors, District 19,
in and for said County of Barron,
in and said for County of Barron,
in said state,
in said state,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
of District Supervisor
of District Supervisor
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have to vote on it, though.
Okay, we do have to vote on that, huh? Okay, so we got a motion by Supervisor Gores, seconded by Supervisor Anderson, that we appoint Craig Fowler to District 19. Do you have a question, Fran? No. Oh, okay. All right, let's vote. Yeah, what happens if you guys say no? We always swore him in.
All right, Fran, I'm going to put you on the spot again. And then we're also waiting on Bill Efforts.
Okay, that passed, 28 yes, 1 absent. So Craig, welcome, and Craig is not a stranger to our government here. He's on several committees for us, and he's actually was running for Supervisor McRoberts' position. He was the only one, so we felt it logical that we appoint him and keep a steady flow of, for District 19 constituents. And Craig, I'm sure will do a good job for us, so welcome again. Thanks. And we'll talk about his appointments later on in the agenda. Okay, item number 6, approve the minutes of December 18th, 2023. Motion, well, good job. Motion by Supervisor Moen on the draw today. Seconded by Supervisor Cook. Any concerns with the minutes? If not, let's vote. Again, that passed, 28 yes, 1 absent. So that motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 7, public comment. We have one, our chaplain, Cody Vargas. You know to hit that button on there, Cody?
It's already on.
All right.
If you could all hold your applause. January 9th, across our nation, was a Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And we in Barron County spent many hours and many different ways to appreciate all of our law enforcement. Within Barron County, we have 6 municipalities. We have police officers. We have 1 sheriff's department, deputies. We also have state patrol, and we also have game wardens that take care of our county. This Appreciation Day has been expressed in a variety of ways through the Law Enforcement Foundation of Barron County, also through our schools. We contacted our schools in the area, and all the elementary kids drew pictures, letters. Some of them were very funny, and some of them were very appropriate for all the law enforcement. And then that night, we were able to put those in the hallways and the mailboxes of the deputies and officers in our county. We are very grateful for the law enforcement that we have. And we, unfortunately, this year, or last year, saw that with the ultimate sacrifice of 2 officers. That our county will never, never forget. This appreciation can be expressed by you also. where you live, you have officers that care for you when you're sleeping, men and women who sacrifice in many different ways. So I encourage you as a committee, as a board for our county, to find different ways to express that gratitude. In fact, next year I'm going to come in December to say the same things, so maybe you can do something special for them. In closing, as I said, hold your applause. We have 2 law enforcement officers here. 2 of our chiefs are here from the Sheriff's Department. So if they would stand as they represent our county, let's thank them for all that they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain, and thank you all our law enforcement people. We really do appreciate what you do. Item number 9, resolution authorizing expenditure authority of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA dollars for Barron County Housing Authority apartment complex rehabilitation not to exceed $3.5 million. And it's got in parentheses, Executive Committee amended version. What this particular one does is, so we don't get confused, is this is the $168,932.23 that the Housing Authority has already expended. All this resolution does is reimburse them for those costs that they've expended already in toward the housing rehab. And if I think in the packet was the detail, if not, I know on the email that our county administrator sent out to everybody on Saturday has all the detail on that as well. So can I get a motion for that? Motion by Supervisor Hanson, seconded by Supervisor Nelson. Question by Supervisor Cook.
Yeah, but it still has a 3.5 in there. And I know what we're saying. It's not to exceed 3.5, which is going to be in another motion. Why don't I just say the 161,000 to reimburse that? Why is it?
I don't know the answer.
Wouldn't that be more appropriate? Because that's what I'm actually expending. Rather than to say not to exceed 3.5 million, I would move. Oh, you got to wait till it's. Oh, the motion's been approved?
Yeah, well, the motions, we've had a first and a second. We haven't voted on yet.
No.
We got other questions
Right.
besides.
But I would move to put in that figure of 161,000.
It's 168,932.23.
Yes.
And I believe it's in there.
It's already in there. It already says on the fiscal impact, it's limited to 168,932.23. So the fiscal impact dictates the disbursement.
I understand that, but it's not part of the number 10, the resolution.
It's on the where you sign, or you got to have a 2/3 vote way at the end on the left.
And on lines 21 through through 35, we explain what we're going to do with this, and then we reiterate that in the body on the back of what the current fiscal impact is. So if you approve this as is, and on lines 40 through 43, reference it again. So we're referencing in 3 places
Okay.
that the 168,932.23 is the amount of the disbursement to the housing authority.
Okay, just so the rest of the board knows, the resolution, the way I think it was worded that way is because when we came to exec, it was talking about the 3.5 and that, and we did amend it so that to just pay for this particular motion, just to reimburse the expenses they had. So I think that's where the confusion came in. But Supervisor Patty Anderson?
I just have a question. When reading over this, I know it's a rehabilitation, and when I was reading what that means on the solar panels. So I just have a question, and this is education for me only. So I Googled how many sunny days we have in Wisconsin. And so I took La Crosse because they had the most sunny days in the state. And so partial sunny days, 95. Partial sunny days, 97. So that gives us a total of sunny days of 192 days. So the 173 days that we don't have sun, how are these solar panels going to give heat, electricity, heat, air conditioning to, I'm saying vulnerable people because they're disabled and elderly, so they would need air conditioning and heat. So just explain to me how this would work, and is there natural gas available And what other,
Pat, Supervisor Anderson, right now we're on item number 9, which, by
what's
the way,
number
takes a
9?
2/3 vote. Your questions, I think, really relate to item number 10, which we will, 10 is where we're talking about the whole project, and
I
so,
was reading the wrong page under number 9.
okay,
Okay.
so we're good till the next
I'm
one.
good till the next time.
And I'll answer that on our next one.
Got it.
Okay, any further questions or concerns? Okay, if not, let's vote. Okay, that passed by a 2/3 vote with 28 yes and 1 no and 1 absent.
Voting no is Newman.
Okay, all right, thank you. That motion's carried. Now, item number 10. This is the one that really is talking about the housing authority as a whole, that we have $3.5 million of ARPA funds that we've previously encumbered about 2 years ago. Initially, the resolution was to basically give our finance department authority to disperse that $3.5 million as needed by the housing authority on their rehabilitation project. There was a lot of this, but then what happened, there was a lot of discussion at the executive meeting. And I believe, hopefully everybody did receive Jeff's email on Saturday that basically is explaining what our thought process was after that executive meeting. And we didn't feel comfortable, we felt that the whole board did not feel comfortable at this point in time going ahead and authorizing that $3.5 million. So what Jeff's position paper does is spell out why we think we ought to study this a little further and basically postpone the full resolution. We'll still keep the $3.5 million encumbered, but there's a lot of reasons and some of the main ones are with the rehab project, the federal government has about another $9 billion, billion of dollars with a B, to head toward these LIHTC credits. Now, just to refresh a little bit, we being the housing authority did apply for a 9% housing credit application, and it's kind of selective. In my mind, they're slanted toward urban areas, not rural, even though they say differently. But we're not successful. We did not get that 9%, but we did get the 4%, which is not competitive. So it's kind of easy to get the 4%, but that's less money we have toward the project. So anyway, there are chances we could reapply and get a higher credit. As you heard some of you heard at Ellers, and you will hear today, right now it appears that interest rates are on a downward spiral, not spiral, but heading downward. That all helps our project as well. There are, as Supervisor Anderson was talking about, these solar panels. They are being contemplated at this time, and there are a lot of federal money for that, but they don't have the rules out. So there's those are 3 reasons why we thought we should postpone a decision on this project. And Supervisor Anderson, that's a legitimate question you had, but I think it will be answered as we go forward. We'll definitely consider that, because just like electrical vehicles in northern Wisconsin, but either way, we'll be talking about that. So I guess I didn't ask. Oh yeah, I do have a first and a second, don't I? And we've got all our. Or do I? No, I don't. That was from the last one. Okay, now I need a first and a second to approve this. Motion by Supervisor Heller, seconded by Supervisor Patty Anderson. Do we have any questions on kind of what I just explained, that we're trying to postpone this to later on? Supervisor Guselik?
So by postponing this, we've all been disappointed with the increase in cost from the 15 million back 2 years ago when this was first looked at to over 17 million today is the newest estimate. What does postponing this a year do for the cost of this project? Because I think we all know that there's construction costs are not going down.
I wish I could answer that, but I'm not that intelligent and can't see into the future. All I can say, the likelihood of costs going up are there, but hopefully we'll also have increased credits and ways to alleviate that. Because what we're trying to do is develop a better cash flow than what we currently have, even though it does indicate that the project cash flows now, but they very well could increase and increase the cost of the project. Supervisor Vaughn.
So if we prove this today, is that postponing it? This seems to be releasing the money right now.
You are right. What we're looking for is in Jeff's position paper. How do we handle that? Okay. Okay. Can we do what Jeff had in his?
Right.
Jeff in his let's here, look at that. In his email on Saturday, he had a motion that he thought we should indicate. Use that one? Okay. So what we really want is amending this motion. I move that agenda item number 10 be postponed until such time as the recommendations contained within this report are completed and reported back to the county board.
I would move.
Okay. Okay, so Supervisor Vaughn, you're 100% right.
You can cancel mine. That was it. I'll cancel.
Okay. What we'd like to do now is if somebody wants to make the motion that I just said, we'd entertain that.
I did. They're gonna do it electronically, though.
Okay. What we've got a main motion.
Second on the floor to approve item number with releasing all 3.5 million, which you should ask.
No, you have an amendment on the floor.
Not yet. Yeah.
I know, but you,
That's right. Yeah, John's right. Yeah, vote.
you have a motion. Now I can amend the motion, which I want to do.
Okay.
That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing.
I think Supervisor Cook's going to take that up and then.
Right.
No, this is for the amendment now. So on the amendment, the Supervisor Cook made the motion and seconded by Supervisor Wenzel. So what we're doing now is this is what we're going to be voting on. Now, I move that the agenda item number 10 be postponed until such time as the recommendations contained within this report are completed and reported back to the county board. Is there any discussion on that? The first one we're going to take up after we vote on this amendment. Okay, seeing no further discussion, let's vote. We don't need to even vote on it. This is for the amendment. See, I can't even see what you guys see.
Right.
Okay, that passed 28 yes and 1 absent. Now we're back to the main motion and
You don't need to act on the main motion because your amendment just postponed it.
No, you still have to pass it as a main motion now to postpone, don't you?
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
Okay, so now we've got the main motion was by Supervisor Heller and seconded by who? Supervisor? Do you know, what was that? You see it, Jess? Oh, Supervisor Patty Anderson, okay. Now, do you have a question on that, Randy?
I do. I know that there's going to be research done, and Jeff did a really nice job in putting forth in his, the paper he had on Saturday. So I know things are going to be looked at. SEH is going to look at some things. I don't know. I know Craig is new, maybe he understands more than I do, but I would like a brief, if you can do it in 10 minutes between now and then, exactly what you can and cannot do with the housing authority. I mean, can I eliminate it? Not that I want to. Can I sell it? Can I lease it to somebody else? Just those types of things. What can the money be used for? I know we have some things coming up that we're going to maybe have to provide some additional housing. I asked Jeff, he gave me an answer, but I do think that those are the types of things that if I could just get a better grip, I've gone back through the minutes and tried to do that, but just what are the limitations with this housing authority? What can it be used for? Who can live there? Those types of things. Just doesn't have to be long, but
You're talking about right now, you'd like to?
no, we got time.
Put
Yep.
it on the February. I'll put it on.
Okay.
Talk to Bob and he's got,
Yep.
I think Bob's already got some things already.
Yeah, did discuss that at the Housing Authority, so yes, Jeff and Bob will be able to answer those questions, so,
Very good, thank you.
okay, thank you. Supervisor Turcott.
You mentioned that we applied for grant money and didn't get it because it goes to bigger municipalities or governments. Can we combine with other counties and apply for this? I just,
No, and don't, I might have been too harsh what I said, we didn't get the 9%, we did get the 4%, we did get several other credits. There's, the majority, I think, of the funding is grant money. We had our 3.5 million of ARPA funds, and then we had a 3 something of a long-term loan. The rest of the funds were that we wouldn't have had to pay back. So we do have a majority of funds, and we were concerned about losing some of those. And we have talked to some contractors, but based on the discussion that we had was had at exec and the current environment of some of the details that Jeff put out in the paper, I think it's wise that we do postpone it. So, any further questions? If not, then let's vote. What are we actually voting for?
Yes, you're voting to postpone.
You're going to be postponing it.
Okay. So I guess if you say yes, we're gonna amend this thing, or postpone it, I mean. Yeah. So I'm voting yes. Sure.
Supervisor Turcott, you asked a really good question. Let me expand on that. We don't go with other municipalities because each application is rated on its own merits. And there's all these criteria like how close are you to mass transportation, medical, things like that. And we're so rural that we get downgraded, downscored. So we wouldn't be a very good partner, say, with a Milwaukee or Madison, because we'd bring them down.
Yeah.
So also, as I put in my first position paper, we only have a 30% chance of getting these dollars to begin with. So think about that when we ultimately get through some of these things we're discussing. We got a 70% chance of getting nothing.
Okay, on the main motion, that passed by a 2/3 vote with 28 yes and 1 absent. So thanks, everybody. Okay, item number 11. Resolution authorizing an expenditure not to exceed 1.5 million for the purpose of installation and upgrades of the new equipment purchases for the Barron County Sheriff's Department countywide communication systems. This again will require a 2/3 vote because we're amending the budget for 2024 and 25. And as indicated in there, it's out of unassigned, assigned, and SISOP. And it doesn't, just don't confuse it with a Sally Port. That's something down the road. This is communications equipment that is outdated, so. Got a motion by Supervisor Hanson, seconded by Supervisor Gores, and a question by Supervisor Langman. No? Okay. Supervisor Taxtell. I think you're on mute, Gary.
He's muted.
you're gonna have
All
to
right,
unmute.
now can you hear me? Can
Yes,
you hear
we
me
can.
now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, okay, in line 66 and 67, where it just hold on, where it authorizes the county sheriff to sign the contracts. We went through a whole issue of that 2 or 3 years ago of a department head signing a large contract, and we decided that Jeff would be signing all contracts of this nature, and that other necessary documents or change orders or spending of the contingency above what the 1.3 is should be approved by the committee and Jeff and or Louis. So I'd like to amend that motion that be it further resolved that the Barron County administrator is authorized to sign contracts and other necessary documents to complete this project, and that any change orders of spending or payment of or issuing or payment from the contingency be approved by the committee and the county administrator. Did you get all that?
Gary, this is Jeff. Can I ask you a question? Does line 51 answer your question about dollars out of the contingency? Let me just read it to you. It says, be it further resolved that any expenditure in an amount that exceeds 1,300,000, that has to go through law enforcement. So would you be amenable then to just striking sheriff and inserting administrator on line 66 and then leave your amendment at that? Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so just what we just did is on line 66 of the resolution. It says, be it further resolved that the Barron County, and we'll strike sheriff, and we'll put administrator in there. So it's just a one-word change. Okay. We voted on the first one, I think. Yep. Okay, now we're on the amendment now. We had Supervisor Taxtell, seconded by Supervisor Wenzel, and a question by Supervisor Schradel. You got your mic on there, Bill?
We had this come up before on different expenditures concerning the sheriff's department equipment. Does the municipalities or the local police force, do they have to pay some of this, or the county always funds all this? Is that correct, or what?
Jeff, that's a good question.
That's
Jeff's
an
gonna
excellent
answer
question. We could make assessments against the municipalities to make them pay. You could do that. I talked to the sheriff and others, and the people at law enforcement discussed this and decided that doing an assessment was not the way to go because they don't have it budgeted. And I guess, Stan, maybe you want, but we did talk about this, Bill, and we just didn't think it was the way to go to start making assessments, because then you'd assess the police departments, the fire departments, the ambulance. How would you make them pay? How would you enforce it if they didn't pay? What happens if some paid and some didn't? That's why we're doing
But we
this.
did discuss it at the law enforcement committee, and we felt it'd be good, the county to be good boys, you know.
So in other words, because we're all taxpayers of that municipality, let's say Barron or wherever it
Yep.
is, that the county, we're gonna have to pay it anyway, right? Right.
Yes.
May I just make another comment? I provided to the committee two research I had done. I'd sent out emails to about 18 different county administrators, Supervisor Schradel, and one of the counties that did the assessments regretted it because when they started to make the assessments, they got a lot of kickback. Well, we didn't like the style that you bought, or we wanted something different, and they got 25 different solutions to one problem. And you know what that means? Nothing happens.
Yeah, just like buying a car, which car should we get? Which manufacturer? Thank you.
Supervisor Cook.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. As soon as first of all, they don't have the money. They can't even afford staff. And secondly, as soon as you're going to make them pay, that is just a lot more voices in this process, and you don't even know if you end up with this communication system. So to his point already that Jeff made, yeah, no.
Supervisor Buchanan.
The sheriff's department has been working with all the other departments over a number of months now, and they've been delaying some of their purchases for radios and things so that they would be compatible with the new system. So there should be no real significant complications for the other stakeholders.
You bet.
I don't know what the will of the body is, but I asked people from GenCom to be here. I told the committee, and I want this board to be aware, I read through all these documents 3 times, one time, 1 page at a time. Quite honestly, we have to rely on these people. I don't know if a 0.8 second response beeper thing is better than 0. And I don't know if a 4 item antenna is better than 2. You can sit and read through all that data and all those data points, but at some point you got to rely on these experts. So I just want, as I told the committee, and Supervisor Buchanan smiled at me then too, you can read through all this stuff and you can analyze it, but at the end of the day, is anybody in this room an expert? That's why you're leaning on these people, and that's why it better work at the end of the day, and why I wrote the resolution the way it is. They're getting their shot at what's grant dollars, and we'll just go from there.
And Mike Judy, our EMS head person, and Chris Fitzgerald, our sheriff, both said we're at the end of life on this equipment. If something happens, we can't get parts anymore. And the vendor reiterated that at the committee. He said, there's a lot of people who are going to be in your same boat, and you guys are getting ahead of the curve a little bit. So, yeah. Does anybody have any questions for GenCom? They are here. Supervisor Schradel, do you have a question? You want to come on up to come on up to the mic.
And the mic is on, good. Hi, I'm Gary Pelletier with GenCom. And Mike, just a quick synopsis of the system. Right now, the radio system that you have is about 15 years old. How many people have a cell phone that's 15 years old? What about a laptop? Well, that's your critical 911 communication, and the way to talk to your officer is page your folks and get first responders on scene as quick as possible. So our company, we've got about 80 employees. We have 5 locations in Wisconsin. We just recently did a project in Washburn County, worked with Tucker McCumber before he passed away, putting in a new radio system. They did not even have radio communications into MindDog, and now they can talk clear in MindDog with the new radio system. So this radio system also takes you some of your channels from analog to digital. And just like your cell phones, years ago you had analog cell phones, we've gone to digital, which much better coverage in the system. So,
and I believe it does cross over a little bit into the other counties as well.
Correct, it will cross over into other counties, and definitely will help if you have to leave, go outside the county as well. So,
Supervisor Guslick, do you have a question?
What is the timing on having it installed and up and going?
We'll have it installed by the end of the year, if not sooner. We do not have to put up any radio towers in Washburn County. We ended up building 2 new radio towers. But here we're using all the existing infrastructure. They've been working with Mosaic on some of the radio towers, and we are moving one site that's actually in Polk County over into, is it Cumberland? Yeah, Cumberland. So we are moving one site, but the building's already there, the tower's there, so we just have to put some new radio antennas up on the tower. But everything else, we're replacing existing infrastructure, and we're replacing the 911 radio system at dispatch. And that equipment was actually moved from the old building before so that was actually not even new when they built that building. It was actually moved from the old building.
Supervisor Banks, did you have a question?
The Justice Department just had a report on the shooting in Uvalde. And one of the criticisms is that all of these agencies weren't on the same page. Now, would this system correct all that so that if there is a significant issue at a school, everybody will get the same message at the same time? And okay, just answer that.
Yes, sir. Good morning. So the way we have it right now is all of...
Mike, you want to get a little closer to the mic there?
Yes, sir. So the way we have it right now, and I'll just speak to fire and EMS. We'll take them out and just speak to them. When we page them for a call, they're paged on one frequency, Barron County Fire frequency. So when those tones go out, they get the pages, they get the radio communications, they hear the call go out, they get in their trucks, they mark en route with dispatch. Dispatch gives them an update. You're responding on whatever the call may be. They're talking truck to truck, they're talking member to member, they're responding to the call, they're communicating, they're coordinating with each other. This is happening on one frequency. When they get on scene, no matter how big or small that incident is, they continue communicating and coordinating on that one frequency. Now, let's say that's happening in Cameron. Barron gets a call. That whole process happens again on the same frequency. Well, now if Rice Lake gets a call, or we'll say Almena gets a call, all of that is happening again on the same frequency. All countywide communications are happening on one frequency. So with this system, it expands that out from one channel to 3. So you have, and then back up, one of the problems that dispatch has had over the years is when responders are communicating on the fire channel, there's so much communication that dispatch doesn't have the ability to page another department. So if another 911 call comes in, they have to sit there and wait until the responders stop talking so they can send pages to page another fire department. So that person, whoever's sick or injured, has to wait until the responders on whatever call stops talking so they have time to page another department. That's extremely dangerous. So with the new system, it takes it from one frequency and expands it to 3. So the first channel is nothing but outbound paging. You cannot talk to dispatch on that channel. That's just outbound, just to page the department. So there should never be a delay on getting help paged to whoever's sick or injured. That should always be an open frequency to send pages and to page departments. Whenever they mark en route, they're going to go en route on channel 2. That's going to be your everyday, normal, run-of-the-mill calls. Nothing important. I ought to say important. It's your everyday car wrecks, your everyday gas leaks, your everyday house fires. That's stuff that can be handled by 1 or 2 departments, not something extremely major or extremely volatile. If it is something major, something volatile, like you mentioned, an active shooter, something in our schools, it could be a major chemical spill, it could be anything that's significant, dispatch is going to tell them to go to channel 3 or ops 3. That channel will be dedicated to that incident. No one else can talk on that frequency except those responders that are on scene of that call. So it's going to really expand their capabilities, responding to a call, on-scene operations, and then giving dispatch that ability to separate everything out.
Thank you.
Supervisor Cook.
I got a quick question, Mike. So if you're on 3, if you're law enforcement, you're on 3, you're at a critical, and someone comes,
EMS.
okay, just EMS, all right.
Fire and EMS, or they'll be on 3. Law enforcement will still be on their frequency because fire and EMS, they do, when they respond, they're very similar in their response. They're both going to fires, they're both going to medicals. Law enforcement is vastly different. They'll be able to monitor those channels, and they can still talk on the channels if they want to, but they normally go through dispatch to relay.
Okay. And my other questions for the other gentleman. You said we've had this system for about 15 years.
Yes. the radio
What is
system.
the anticipated useful life of the system we're going to purchase?
It'll be 15 to 20 years as well. Most of the new equipment is newer equipment. It's not near the end of its life. And it's forward compatible to go to trunking or anything else in the future. So that same base station could be repurposed for a trunking system if that ever happened in the future.
But we are buying new equipment.
Yes, you are buying new
Okay.
equipment. Yeah, it's software expandable for the future.
Thank you.
Supervisor Heller.
In your uplinks, is it air to air only, or is it air to satellite, or air to a fiber backbone, or?
This will be fiber through Mosaic, basically, correct? Yes.
This will help go through the fiber system that Lance installed at our towers.
Yes, which is significant savings. Putting in a microwave, the other way is doing microwave between towers. And a microwave system could probably add on at least $500,000, if not more.
Supervisor Buchanan.
Mike, you may want to explain a little bit also about how an officer going from one part of the county to another would have to switch channels in order to make contact.
Sure. Let's say that an officer starts his traffic stop on.
And this is the current system you're talking about?
Yes, the current system. Officer starts his traffic stop on 53 northbound, just south of Chautauqua. He's coming into Chautauqua on 53. Turns these lights on. When he radios dispatch, he's talking on Law 1 on the Chautauqua Tower because he's closer to that tower. If that vehicle fails to stop and they get into a pursuit and that vehicle takes him from his current location up to Highway 8 and then goes across through to Turtle Lake, every time he transitions into a new district with a new tower, he has to scan his radio and flip through the channels to find that radio frequency because it's a single site system. So under the new system, the simulcast system, whenever he gets into that pursuit, he radios dispatch. It doesn't matter what frequency his radio says. When he keys up, it picks the tower with the closest or the strongest signal, contacts dispatch, and then he continues driving. When he keys up again, he doesn't have to touch anything. It stays on that frequency, and it just picks the tower with the closest or the strongest signal, contacts dispatch. So it's completely hands-free to him versus driving down the road at 100, 110 miles an hour, lights and sirens screaming, and now he has to use his hands to try to scan a radio and read it so he can contact dispatch if something happens. So that's a huge benefit on the law enforcement side.
Thank you.
Supervisor Newman. Is your mic on? Stacy, is your mic on?
Pardon me. My question is in regards to the southern part of the county, for instance, where Barron, Chippewa, Dunn come together down in the Prairie Farms, Sand Creek. Part of the district actually touches New Auburn as well. Prairie Farm and Sand Creek and Dallas, they work together on different issues. But say, for instance, we need to reach out to the Sand Creek Fire Department or the Ridgeland Fire Department. How does Barron County, you mentioned, I think, 2 basically entities on a channel. But if you need more than 2 or need to reach out to basically across the county line, how would all of that come together with a new system? And then question number 2 is there like a GPS side to this? Our roads are very unique down in that area as well.
So to help with your first question, if that department needs to contact
You want to
another-
go on to Mike? Mike, 'cause a lot of that, I say that, they can hear you in here, but if there's people online, they can't.
Oh, okay. To answer your first question, if that department needs to contact another department that's outside of the county that responds into our county, they'll contact dispatch and say, hey, I need this department to respond with us. Dispatch will contact that other county and page them out. And when they mark en route, they'll mark en route on our frequency so they can hear each other. So once we install this system, the simulcast system, we'll notify those surrounding counties. So whenever they program their radios, they can program our frequencies into their radios. So right now, under our current system, radios only have so many banks, so many channels. You have to have, is it 8 banks, 15 channels for a current system?
16.
Is it 6 banks?
16, well, I'm not sure how many banks you have on your individual program.
I think our current system, you have to have, there's like A bank, B bank, C bank, and it goes all the way. And then under each bank, you only have like 18, 20 channels. Right now, our system takes, I think, 8 banks and 15 channels just to program our current system. That's a huge amount of frequencies that firefighters and EMS has to, and law enforcement has to kind of scan through to find the frequency they're looking for. Under the new system, there's 3. That's huge because it not only frees up that extra space for other channels, but it's easy to flip A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3 to find that. So when we program simulcast into our system, our mutual aid surrounding agencies will program those 3 channels into their system. So whenever they mark en route, they'll key up on our frequency and we'll hear them. And that's how they'll communicate on that new, the simulcast system. As far as GPS,
Yeah, and just to clarify, the new system will have 5 channels overall.
5, okay.
Yeah, because there's, I think 2 of them are public safety, correction, like law enforcement, and the other 3, I think, are paging, and then your fire and EMS folks. So there will be an overall 5, where right now there's 3 channels, and like he said, there's different channels at different towers because there's not automatic roaming. The second part, there is a GPS component of this, and that is only to sync the timing for the simulcast. When you have multiple transmitters all transmit at once, if you're between 2 towers and you're closer to one, you're going to hear that a split second before you hear the other one. So the timing is only there for that. It is not for navigation.
Supervisor Turcott.
Is there an overlap time between the old system and the new system to make sure everything is working?
Yes, there is. Because we're adding 2 new channels from the existing 3, those 2 channels, when they go online, those will be our test channels that we can go around, test radio coverage in the county, and optimize the system. Once that is done, we can start migrating folks over to the new channels while we still have the old one online. And then once everything is good to go, we can turn off the other channels and then turn on the other 3.
And the last question would be, are you gonna run all these EMS fire departments through a training of some sort? So, thank you.
Any further questions? If not, we've got a motion and a second as amended by, let's see, as amended with that, yeah, by Supervisor, Taxtall, that we change the sheriff to the administrator. So let's vote on that one. Okay, that passed, 28 yes and 1 absent. Then we're on to the main motion now, where, as amended, we'll be voting on that to authorize 1.5 million of expenditure. And do we need? Okay, we got a motion from Supervisor Hanson and a second from Supervisor Gores. Is there any further questions? If not, let's vote. Okay, that passed by a 2/3 vote of 28 yes and 1 absent. Is Sean here yet, Jeff? Yes. Okay, all right, thank you. So that motion was carried. We're on to item number 12, Eller's presentation on potential borrowings with Sean Lentz. Hey, Sean, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. I believe we've got a presentation we'll put up on the screen for the board that I'll go through. We went through a very similar presentation with the executive committee a couple weeks ago, I believe, earlier in the month. The presentation is a little bit of background on the current indebtedness situation for the county. And then from there, it gets into looking at some of the capital projects that the county is discussing potentially financing and looking at different options for how those projects can be paid for in 2024. As I go through the material, if it's okay with the board and okay with the chairman, feel free to interrupt with questions and we'll take those right away. If we can go to the next page. Oh, that's right, I've got, and what do I aim at again, Jody? Right at your computer? Okay, perfect. All right. Sure I do this right. Is it the up or down or the sideways ones? Okay.
There you go.
There we go. All right, you'll have me trained eventually, Jody. Okay, so this first page is just a look at the budget for the capital projects proposed for 2024. They do have a range, as some of the projects I think are yet to be finalized. So we've got some HVAC improvements at the campus, a Sally Port at the Justice Center, and then various communications upgrades as well. And one of the primary questions is debt issuance the best approach for all or some of the projects this year, or is use of cash, or some or all, and that's what we're going to get in a little bit more with the presentation. So let's start with indebtedness. The most common form of financing that a county would use for financing projects like this is general obligation debt. It is the lowest cost of financing options available to the county, and it is as such because it's backed by the full faith and credit of the county, or your ability to levy taxes. That's your collateral pledge, so that's a very strong pledge. Typically, with the issuance of debt, we try to match that debt with the useful life of the assets that you are financing. So sometimes we'll have debt paid back over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. There is a limit, though, with using general obligation debt. The repayment can't be more than 20 years. That's by state statute. With debt financing, it's maintaining your cash balances, and certainly county staff can talk to you as well as I can about what's maybe appropriate targets and what's the best fit for the county terms of the ability to keep cash for ongoing month-to-month expenses that you have, as well as emergencies that can come up. With debt, even though general obligation debt can garner you the lowest interest rates, there certainly are costs and interest payments that you make over the life of the debt, and that depends on the term of the debt too. So as those of you, and I'm sure many of you have had mortgages on your home, 15-year mortgage, 30-year mortgage, obviously you're going to pay a lot more interest paying debt back over 30 years. And then finally, and we'll look at this as well, when debt is issued, not always, because sometimes you can issue debt and wrap it around debt that you're paying off, such that the overall tax impact on the taxpayers of the county is minimal, or in some cases none. But typically, if you don't have that situation where debt is falling off, there'll be some tax impact to adding new debt to the existing debt repayment situation that the county has. Now, on the other side, using cash for projects, as I talked about, with debt, you're going to have interest and other costs associated with the issuance of that debt. Cash will eliminate that. Some other things to think about with using cash is cash that the county has accumulated is really from past operations of the county and the result of past taxpayers and other beneficiaries of the county's operation paying into that. So you're really using cash that you've received in the past, but there's also benefit for most capital improvements that a county would do, not from just people who've been here before, but people who come down the road. And so sometimes there's a mismatch in terms of beneficiaries from using cash. Can, not in all cases, but can lessen your ability to deal with emergency type situations if your cash is drawn to a level that's maybe too low or dangerously low for the county. Also, the county, I think as many of you know, you have an excellent bond rating of AA currently with Standard & Poor's. AAA is the best, then AA plus, then AA. So you're very near the very top possible rating that you can have. In some circumstances, again, not all, and it's dependent on a particular county like Barron County, if you use up too much of your cash, it can have a negative impact on your bond rating, and then thus you're going to have a higher cost on future debt with a lower rating that you can offer to the market. Another item with use of cash is your interest earnings on that cash. Now, a couple years ago, interest on investments was extremely low, and it wasn't unusual for investments to be earning 0.5% or less, 1/4%, 1% on investments that the county and other governmental entities have. In recent years, with the Fed increases and inflation, some other factors, interest rates have risen quite substantially, such to the point right now that investments that you have as a county are likely, and probably highly likely, earning more interest than what you're paying on some of the debt that you have outstanding. So the interest rate on investments is higher than the interest rates on debt. And that is the current situation that we're in now. And finally, another thought I think I always recommend for boards is with cash, there's certain projects that cash is potentially better used for than others. And with cash, when you're thinking about using it, also consider what do you got coming down the road as a county on your capital improvement plan and other long-term planning that you're engaging in.
I have a question. So
sure.
That do not pay interest or cost of insurance, we just passed a resolution that took out of our unassigned fund balance, which we maintain between 25 and 33%. And so that would be an example where we want to stay within that 33 and 25%, but those funds came out of there and cost us no interest, other than the interest we would have gotten, and I don't know what that is, on our money in of.
5.39% is what we're earning.
That's 5.3%.
Yeah, we're paying less than 2 on our highway, and we're getting 5 on a lot of it. So.
1.55485 on our.
But I'll just point out to the board, that's an example where we just did something with cash and we're not paying interest on it.
There we go. So for the board, I'd put together a preliminary debt issuance to cover the projects that we had talked about on the first slide, estimating about a $6,015,000 interest rate. And I was using interest rates currently about 0.5% above current market conditions. And what we've done with this debt issue as an example for the board is a 20-year repayment. As I'd mentioned, that's the longest you can go with level annual total payments. So the principal starts at usually a lower amount, interest is at a higher amount because you've got more principal outstanding. And then over time, just like a mortgage, your principal becomes a larger payment of the total and interest becomes less over time. So with this sort of a situation with a 20-year repayment, interest rates conservative at about 0.5% above the market, you're looking at about $445,000 total debt service payments each year to pay the financing of these projects, proposed projects, back over 20 years.
And again, if you look at that, I mean, the interest rate looks fine. I mean, you're looking at 3.6 to 4.4, but over 20 years, a third, 32% is how much you get to add to the price tag of what you borrowed.
Yep, the 2.8, if you look at the bottom line there, the totals, the principal is $6,015,000. The interest of paying it off over the 20 years is 2.8, and the total is about 8.9 million over that 20-year timeline. This question came up with executive, and I'll mention it for the full board. Typically with an issue like this, with a 20-year repayment term, the first 8 years would be non-prepayable. So the county would not have the option to use either cash or to refinance the debt in those first 8 years. But starting in year 8 through year 20, if the county wanted to use cash to pay the debt off early, that would be at your option. Or if the county, if lower interest rates are available, and we would usually be talking with the county about that, you could refinance the debt and lock into lower interest rates at that time. So think about it in terms of that first 8 years, about a blackout period, not being able to refund, but the last 12, if you wanted to, you don't have to, you could refinance the debt.
So if you went to something that allowed prepayment in the first 8 years, is the interest rate higher?
Yeah.
Significantly, or?
Well, just to give you an example, there is a program in Wisconsin called the State Trust Fund Loan Program. Counties used that before with the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands. That loan program does allow you 9 months of the year, every year you could make a prepayment. Currently, that program's running at a 6% interest rate. So give you a sense as to the impact of the more call flexibility.
Supervisor Gores.
I don't know if it would, if you would even be wanting to do this, but what do you call them? If we would sit there for some reason, do a prepayment or extra payment and stuff like that, is there a penalty on that?
In the first 8 years, in this situation that I'm showing on the screen, you would not be able to do that. But starting in year 8 through year 20, there would be no penalty.
Last 12.
At the last 12 years, correct.
I guess I had another question, but I don't remember what it was. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You can always pop in again, Jim.
Right. We got a few more slides here, so if it comes back to you, just let me know. Whoop, sorry. Really quick on this slide, number of years back, maybe when the Justice Center debt was being done, one of the factors that we were a little concerned about is the amount of general obligation debt the county was going to have outstanding as compared to the limit that the state puts on governmental entities' ability to use general obligation debt. The rule is you can't go above 5% of the equalized value of the county. The county's over $6.6 billion in value now. 5% of that is around $330 million. And even with the proposed issue, that just above $6 million, you'd still have almost $33 million in borrowing capacity, or 90% of what the state allows you to borrow up to. So the counties use this tool very conservatively in the past, and this sort of limit is not any sort of a concern for the county should you choose to issue additional general obligation debt. There we go. Now, probably more importantly is what is the impact on taxes of adding additional debt to the debt load that the county is already responsible for. So what you see up on the screen right now is a look at that situation. On the left side of the page is your valuation of the county, not including tax increment districts that are in the county. So that's why this equalized value is a little lower than the 6.6 billion at about 6.4, because property that's in tax increment districts in communities all around the county, that's not available for you to pay for debt or general expenses of the county. So with the 6.4 billion in value, we are currently spreading the debt of the highway and the state trust fund loan from 2023, which is around 1.9, a little bit more, almost 2 million in payments each year. And then to the right of that, starting with a first payment due in 2025, I've added new debt from the slide we looked at a couple slides ago. And you can see that the levy then would go from right around 2 million for debt, the 1,994,000, up to about 2.4 million, or again, about 445,000 additional. And the equalized mill rate for debt, which is the per thousand impact on taxes, was 31 cents per $1,000 of equalized value in the county. So if I owned a $1,000 property, I'm going to be paying 31 cents to pay for my portion of the debt that the county has. That would be projected to go up with the interest rates, conservative interest rates that we were using, to about 38 cents, or about a 7-cent increase per $1,000 of value that I would have. So I think that would be $7 on a $100,000 property in that instance. Also wanted to give the board members a sense of interest rates on a historical basis and what we're looking at currently right now. This is over a 30-year time period, and you can look at interest rates on the chart for, this is a grid used commonly to mirror where interest rates for governmental debt are over this 30-year time horizon. You can see a couple years ago, and it was actually right around the time that the highway department debt was issued, that debt was at a very, very historical low point, and that's back in that around middle to late 2020. Interest rates certainly have come up in the last year, 2 year plus, and you can see that on the chart. But even with that significant increase that we've noticed recently, when you look at it on a 30-year time horizon, we're still at a relatively low interest rate environment over a 30-year period. Not at the historical lows, but at a relatively low point in history over this 30-year time horizon. Now, this next slide, I'm sorry, a little trigger happy there. Okay, there we go. Did want to spend a little bit of time, and we'll certainly ask county staff to talk about these numbers. What you see on the screen currently are fund balance numbers from your 2022 audit. So you've got different categories of fund balance. Non-spendable is usually those are advances from one county fund to another that are being repaid to the general fund. This is the general fund cash that we're talking about here, and fund balance. Committed are very tightly held dollars for very specific purposes. And then assigned and unassigned are a little bit more flexibility for the county to use these dollars for purposes at your discretion. Assigned a little less so. Those are usually dollars that the board has taken action over time to be setting aside for capital projects and other projects that you expect in the future. I think another example, Jody, you correct me if I'm wrong, is I don't know if I call it your self-insurance or your dollars that you set aside for retirements and some of those other factors that you have for county staff.
Yeah, that would be our sick and vacation liability.
Yep, so that's in the, in the assigned. Now, the unassigned is where you have the most flexible abilities to use those dollars. But it's also important when you're thinking about the unassigned to think about month-to-month expenditures that the county has, because your dollars that come in from the state, from the federal government, from taxpayers, they don't come in at a steady flow over the course of the year. They come in at different times. So it's often you're needing to have cash to carry you through those lower months that you have over the course of an operating year. And again, this number that you see there, the unassigned, certainly an attractive number at about 13.9 million, is a number at a point in time, December 31st, 2022. And maybe again, I'll go to Jody. Jody, currently as of the end of 23, did you have an estimate of what that unassigned balance was?
Sure. Part of that 13.9 is actually some ARPA dollars that they have rolled into the general fund. At the end of 2022, a more realistic unassigned fund balance was about 10.7. And then with the 2024 budget, there were some other things that were earmarked to bring us down to the 33%. So that brings us down to about 7.9 million. We won't have 2023 closed out until probably April. So you'd need to stay tuned for that, so.
Sure. Thank you, Jody, because if we look at these numbers, at the end of 2022, your expenditures, general fund expenditures in 22 was about 25.1, 25.2 million. And with an unassigned balance of 13.9 million on the books at the end of 22, that was over 55% on your goal of being within the 25 to 33%. But if I'm hearing Jody correctly, with some of the actions you've taken through 23, you're probably closer to that 33% now, Jody? Yep.
Well, what happens if you look back at the budget process, if you want to go back and look at what Jeff and Jody presented our budget, they're going off, it's called explanation of excess fund balance as of 12/31/22. And it'll give you exact numbers that we're talking about. And the audited fund balance was 10.7 million, which was 44% instead of the 55. And then we took 1,346,000 and applied it to the 2024 budget to reduce that, to reduce taxpayers' tax levy. And then we had upcoming STP bridge projects of $1 million. So that got us down to the 7.9 million, which gets us at that 33%. Again, and you need that for working capital. You've got the ARPA funds are out of this one. But anyway, if you want to go back in your packet of stuff, you can always go back and look at that if you so desire.
So based on these numbers, that difference between if our total is 28,812, not disputing that, that's the total. 25% of that would be about 7.2 million. 33% of that would be about 9.5 million. So the difference, and this was a question we had in the exec committee, to make sure we keep our rating, our AA rating, we certainly want to be above 25. But that would leave $2.25 million between the two, that gap between the two, based on those numbers. I don't know what those numbers are going into 2024, but those are 22 numbers. So based on that, to make sure we didn't affect our bond rating or anything like that, there would be 2.25 million, which we just took 1.3 million out of that, correct?
What did you say, Jody?
2.3.
Yeah, we've taken 2.3 for this year's budget, plus we took another 1.3 just today.
Yep.
So we've used up the difference between 33 and 25%.
Okay.
Now, I want the board to be very aware of upcoming expenditures to another tune of another 1.1 million. If we go forward with the Sallyport, we need $492,000 out of unassigned fund balance to get that process starting. Obviously, we can backfill that with borrowing. Sorry, it's going to be 9,900,000 plus The Health and Human Services is running a deficit for the first time in many years of about 500,000, 542,000, something like that. So we'll have to backfill that. So we'll be less than, if we were to close the books today, we would be less than 25%.
Okay.
So just be cautious. Let me give you the greatest advice I've ever heard, and I've heard lots of financial advice. Dan Toll told the county board when we built the Justice Center, the idea back then was, oh, we're not going to borrow. We're going to use up our fund balance. Dan Toll told the county board, don't be a hero today to be a goat tomorrow. Because, and I don't mean G period, O period, A period, T period, as we talk about Tom Brady. You know what I mean by goat. So fund balance is nice. It took us from 1990 to today to have any fund balance. In 1988, Barron County borrowed money to pay payroll because there was no fund balance. We borrowed money to keep the doors open. You don't want to go down that road because as soon as you've got your hand out like Palm Sunday in front of a banker and they know you don't have anything, the interest rates go up. So be very careful.
Okay. I get it, Palm Sunday. So, sorry, Jody, I keep jumping the gun there. There we go. So a couple more of a summary to things to think about, maybe some different approaches that you could consider in terms of reviewing things over time to see where, give you some options, even if you borrow that maybe you could still use cash, those kind of thought processes and consideration. Currently, as I'd mentioned earlier, investment rates are higher than borrowing rates. So the rates I was showing you on the borrowing, as Jeff had pointed out, you're able to invest your money at a higher rate. So you do have the potential if to earn more investing current cash than what you'll spend on interest on your borrowing. Again, this doesn't always have to be 100% one way or the other option. There certainly is things in the middle where you do some borrowing and some cash. But another intriguing idea that I think is out there for the county board to consider is that your state trust fund loan that you have outstanding is at 5 3/4 rate right now, and it's debt for the waste energy operation. That is the highest interest rate debt that you have outstanding. That debt is outstanding at a higher interest rate than if you were to borrow money now and go into the market, and it's at a significantly higher interest rate than the debt that you issued for the highway department building. One option the county could consider there too, if you do decide to use cash to some extent to dealing with all of the debt that you have outstanding, is you could use that to pay down some portion of that debt. I don't think you could pay the whole thing off, but you may be able to pay some portion of it off. The other reason I think that has some attractiveness is that would also be somewhat of an investment because that would pay debt off that the waste energy plant is responsible for. And then instead of that plant paying an outside bondholder back with interest,
right,
they're paying the county board and the county's general fund back with interest. So that's also something that you could consider. And that could be something that you don't have to do right away. You could kind of monitor how things are going and potentially do it at another time down the road. So you could keep monitoring and see, yeah, maybe now is the time to put some cash into that if you chose to do so. So that's an interesting option. As I'd mentioned, the county.
Don, we got a Supervisor Taxtall who's online has a question.
Oh, sure.
I don't have a question. I have to leave the meeting. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, hit him
Thank
straight.
All right, bye.
It's warmer. It's not that warm. As I mentioned, the county's bond rating is exceptional at the AA level. For you as a county, Barron County, with your fund balance and your balanced operations, very well managed so that you get pluses on your bond rating for that. But relatively speaking to counties throughout the country, Barron County would not be described as a property rich or people who live in the county being described as rich. So those factors work against you on your bond rating. And the fact that you do have a really strong fund balance really kind of think helps push you up to that AA level. So your policy is good to keep in mind, but also I think one of the reasons you have that exceptional level is you've had a very strong fund balance historically as well. Finally, tax impact portions to consider. Obviously with cash, you're having an impact on the fund balance, but not on the levy. But by pulling down the cash, it does affect that month-to-month cash flow that you've got, as well as the funds for an emergency. The trade-off with issuing debt, though, as we talked about, is there will be annual payments that will have to become part of your budget in the future, and that'll be something that would start with debt issued this year for the budget, starting for levy 24 for payments in 25. So I know we covered a lot of ground, Mr. Chairman, and hopefully wanted to introduce the topic and some ideas and approaches that the board could consider, but maybe I'll stop now, and if there's other questions that the board has.
Any other questions by anybody? Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
I just want the county board to be aware that we discussed this a bit at the highway department, and one thing Supervisor Gores and other members of that, Mike put forward the idea that County Trunk Highway P from Highway 8 to Cumberland is really in need of being repaired and some extensive repairs, and you were there, Louis. So one of the things that, and I ran this by, I trust Sean, and I know he won't be offended, I also ran this by another financial institution. We discussed, like a project like that, it may behoove us to throw that into a borrowing too, because that, if we rebuild that road, would last 25 years. And also borrowing that money, we could maybe draw down some additional LRIP dollars, which is either 50-50 grant money or 80-20. So if we put in 20%, we get 80% drawdown. So these are all things that we want to talk about together, so we're making the right decision, because as Sean says, it might be, when Sean and I talked about this, it might be the right time to borrow a little extra for a project that's going to be a 25-year project like the highway would be, so Highway P. So it's something just to noodle on.
We're lucky we have Jeff and Jody on our side, because they know what the hell's going on and they keep us in a good spot. Supervisor Gooselich.
Jeff, I got a quick question there. What do you call them? Mike has been talking about that Highway P project as an STP project funding. Would that make a difference in that?
Yes, if it's an STP project, I believe then that we could, the work would have to be done by a private contractor and we could provide I believe, Jim, and correct me if I'm wrong, we could provide the blacktop and lay it, but that would be the only part of the project, like the culverts, the bridge aid, that would have to be yeah, Carolyn's, yeah, that'd have to be a private contractor. So, yep, that's exactly what he talked about. He said that, I believe he said that was as in his analysis, that was like the worst road, or the road he wanted to bring to the top, correct? Isn't that what he said at the meeting?
Yes, he did.
And then from P South, he wants to do a heavy-duty chip seal on that. He wants to rough it up. So those were the two projects he's talked specifically to the committee about.
Supervisor Gooselich.
So what would be the timing on making this decision? Is this a decision we're going to make here in the next couple months? Is this next year? And who makes that? I mean, who's coming forward with the recommendation? Is it a
Jeff.
certain committee?
No, it would go through the highway. Well, we'd start with law enforcement if
No,
they.
I mean the total package.
Well, the total package would be up to the county board because it's not part of the budget, so it'd take a 3/4 vote of the county board to incur the indebtedness. And then if we got where we finalized numbers, Sean would come back because it would start with an enabling resolution. Then you're going to go to Quarles and Brady's and have them review everything. We're going to discuss how much to borrow on GO, and as Sean has said, do we talk about refinancing the acid gas removal system, because that would be that'd be a taxable bond issue. So it's all up in the air. I don't want to rush this through. At this point, Audrey, I don't have any set time. I just wanted this to be a training session so people understood the process. What is it, Sean? Probably 90 to 120 days from.
Yeah, I think that the 90 days is a really good estimate from the point that we get started. We go through those steps of the initial resolution authorizing, and then take the bids, pick the winning bid, the low interest cost bid, to the closing, which is a couple weeks after that. You're probably looking in that 60 to 90 day window all in to get the process completed.
It's like we did with the highway department. If you were around during that, there'd be the same kind of process. And this would initiate with Jeff and Jody, but the board has to do it, and Sean would be involved in all this. Ellers does an excellent job for us, and as you can tell by his presentation today, he knows what's going on, and we lean on him. And we do, again, I don't know the timing, but we got intelligence and luck on the highway department, because we got a heck of a rate there, and we're on a down cycle right now, so we'll just have to see. Supervisor Stradel.
Yeah, one thing about you mentioned the waste energy out there. Of course, most of borrowing for there, what is it, 2.5, 3 million, whatever it is. That's gonna, once that's in, that's gonna have hopefully a significant payback. Plus, we're gonna be burning, another maybe 30 tons a day out there. So this is one of the few that, nothing against the rest of these projects. We know they're not gonna have any payback, so to speak, but this will.
And
So
they
that'll
are
help
paying us
out with
back
that
too.
particular debt.
Yeah, the waste energy is reimbursing the general fund.
Yeah, right.
So, did you have a question, Pete?
Just a comment on the timing. If you look at the three projects we're talking about, the HVAC at the campus and the Sallyport at the Justice Center and communications, we just authorized a communications upgrade. The other two we're looking at this year. So it's this spring and summer is what we're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, no, we talked to the property committee about this, and Steve would like something back to the property committee by, I'm looking at Supervisor Heller, we wanted something by April or May because he'd like to let bids and then start the HVAC, have it in before the next cold season. And Sallyport's, there's a lot of study that needs to be done on that.
Supervisor Cook.
Right, so if you could back up to the one slide that adds mill rate, I think we went from 31 with the highway department additional. And we just did, like Pete just said, we did the 1.5 million communications. That only leaves two of those projects. And so that those two projects, if I'm correct, are only adding 0.07 to our mill rate.
Yes, from 31 cents to 38 cents. Yep.
Okay. What is our current mill rate? What's our current mill rate? That's okay.
3.56.
3.56.
You're talking there's two left, but I think we really should take a hard look at the idea of using that 1.3 and paying down some of that state trust fund money and basically finance that and borrow this so that
let's
we can
let
cut
Jeff
that
and
down.
Jody come up with a proposal along with discussion Ellers. Once they let them come up with something, and then we can discuss it. Any further questions? Thanks, Sean. You did an excellent job.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. Good to see you again.
Okay, item number 13, progress update on the highway facilities. Our highway commissioner, Mike Haves, and a couple other people are down at the Wisconsin County Highways Association. Mike did email us and say things are going well. There are a few punch list items. Jody is working with Mike a lot, and they provide to us a contractor status, and just about all of them are closed or in closing. So everything's going okay with the progress there, but then I want to go on to with Jody with the financial update unless there's any questions on the progress, but I told you pretty much everything I know. So now we'll go on to item number 14, the financial update on the highway facilities project.
Okay. We're taking a look at December, and actually the December financials will be changing a little bit over the next couple of months because we're going to be booking some of these upcoming payments back because that's when the work was actually done. Things are going really slow. They're kind of just trickling in right now. But basically, right now, we have cash on hand that's still sitting in the highway fund that's earmarked for this project of $1,235,000 that's left. And based on our estimates, as of today, we're like right around $100,000 below the current budget. So we have a little bit, of wiggle room.
Yeah, I will say, I'd love to, could just quit talking now and say we're $100,000 underneath our project, but that, I have to say a little bit more. There are some things that are being looked at out there. It's on the, they call it direct data controls at the highway shop. And in order for us to be informed of any incidents or things that happen unusual out there, we want to be able to take care of those right away, not have something happen. So Steve Olson, our maintenance director, along with Jody and Jeff and Mike Hayes from the Highway Department are currently evaluating that. So I just wanted to, I don't want to get euphoria going here. I wanted to make sure that we are looking at something, and we may have some additional exposure on those direct data controls. But if you look at what I do is the thing that Jody prepared on January 11th of 2024, there are some things on there that we have in the budget yet. You know, we've got curb and gutter and asphalt and stuff, of course, has to be done. But there's another category out there that might cover this. So all I can say is that keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully we can stay under our budget, but I can't promise you that yet because I know Randy's going to ask me that question.
No, I brought this up several months ago about the communications, the data going back and forth, and I think one of the highway guys was here, and I know it was, again, overlooked. I don't know by whom, but do we have an idea approximately? Is this thing a $500,000 deal, $1 million deal? Do we know?
Don't know. I'm going to guess a couple hundred up, but I don't know that. That's why they're looking at it. There was issues, you know, with design and whether the design actually got, the bid was the same as the design, those kind of things. So I don't want to go any further on what I'm going to say here. So
Okay.
They are looking at it. We'll get it figured out. Yeah. Any further questions on those items? Okay, item number 15, approval of the emergency fire wardens for Barron County. Motion by Supervisor Bob Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Patty Anderson. And we got a question by Supervisor Turcott. Did you hit the wrong button? All right. All right. Okay, so we got a motion and a second to approve the fire wardens as outlined. Any further questions? Not, let's vote. That passed, 26 yes and 3 absent. As you saw, Gary, Supervisor Taxtall had to leave, and so did Supervisor Mosentine. She's going down to the highway conference. So that motion was carried. Okay, item number 16, the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA expenditures. Jody provided a list in there. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 17, report from our county administrator.
Item number 17A, bead grant. Dave's in the audience. Thank you, Dave, for taking that over. That was really started by Marathon County disputing the speed and accuracy of fiber to the home. So he's going to handle that. I put some information on sales tax data. I just do this because I want the board and taxpayers to realize it's no longer property taxes that drives their budget, it's sales tax. Sales tax becoming more and more important now as we are a net in commuting county, which if you looked at my green book presentation, you know that sales tax is a part of it because of net in commuting. So anybody have questions for me on that?
So when sales tax is collected, how quickly do we get that sales tax?
It's about a month. It depends on the time of the year, but like now we're going to be closing out. We'll get by the 17th of the month following the month for the prior month. So there's a lag time.
Okay.
So we'll close.
Remember,
out.
we smoothed that over 3 years.
Right. We used to do 2 years. Now we do 3 to keep our mill rate not jumping. Because if you do that, your mill rate and your tax levy jumps. So that's why I wanted to smooth it over 3 years. And then, you know, I'm always petrified that we're going to get a high cost placement in health and human services, and we'll blow through $2.5 million pretty quickly. So that's another reason to sit on sales taxes to level things out. So good question. You know, if you looked at what I gave you, we're in the top 3 counties as far as sales tax driving our budget. That's an amazing statistic. That is an amazing statistic. Out of 50 or 68 counties now that have sales tax, we're in the top 5 as far as sales tax being the most important part of our annual budget. It's a huge, huge deal. You know, Burnett, Washburn, St. Croix, they're catching up to us because people are leaving Minneapolis, St. Paul. But otherwise, if you look back even 5 years ago, we were statistically an outlier as far as sales tax collected per capita.
Jeff, another quick question. So this reevaluation that's taking place in a lot of townships, what impact is that going to have on our revenue?
None, because a reevaluation readjusts based on equalized valuation based on what's done. So what happens is what will happen typically is the overall equalized valuation of the county will increase, but it will be equalized. So for example, let's just say that there were only 2 townships in our county, Apple and Banana. And if Banana hadn't done a reeval in 25 years, maybe their equalized valuation would jump by 50%. So that benefits the people in the town of Apple because now suddenly their proportionate share of taxes will drop. Which, just in case you don't know, there's only 2 states in the union that do not have unified property tax assessment. That's Wisconsin and New York. Otherwise, every other state in the union has unified tax assessment that's done at a higher level than the municipal level. So it's only Wisconsin and Minnesota that does municipal tax assessment. So you need to think about that because there's a lot of townships and that they're skirting the law, quite honestly. They're skirting the law. They haven't had a full reevaluation in 20 or 25 years. So, yeah. But what it happens is it just shifts. It shifts. One, somebody's is going to go down and somebody's is going to go up because you haven't been reevaluated.
And I've had those questions, they'll say, well, geez, I see you did your budget, the county didn't have much of an increase, the same thing with the towns and that, but it all depends on what your valuations are in that town. You may go up significantly or down depending on what everybody else is doing.
It's also critical for board members to understand that the Equalized Valuation District is out of Eau Claire, and every year they take a statistical analysis of all sales that take place in all municipalities across the 13 or 15 counties. And what they do is they look at those sales. So they might pull, I'm just use City of Barron. If there was 25 home sales in the City of Barron, they might pull 5 and say, all right, of those five, the sales value, the fair market sales value is 25% higher than the equalized value. So then they'll go, well, we can't do 25%, so maybe they'll raise the equalized valuation in the City of Barron 10%. And they have a statistical basis that they say, when you look at a bell curve, if that bell curve is accurate, they do that for every municipality. Good example. For example, many years ago in New Auburn, they had a piece of open ground sell for a exorbitant amount of money, and that drove up equalized valuation in the little bitty village of New Auburn. Well, the Equalized Valuation District got questioned, and they said, well, statistically, this is what happened, and it stood. So it's a very accurate, and like I say, it's statistically, they pull so many, and that's how they raise equalized valuation when they don't have a full evaluation, which is really what should be going on every 20 years.
Okay. We're on to item 18. Does anybody have any opposition to me asking for a motion to approve all the appointments? The main one is A, there, Health and Human Services Board, and then our new supervisor, Craig Fowler, is replacing Supervisor McRoberts on 4 of them. You looking at me? Oh, okay. Does anybody have any opposition? Okay, we got a motion by Supervisor Buchanan and seconded by Supervisor Efforts to approve all A, B, 18A, 18B, 18C, 18D, and 18E on the agenda. No further questions. Let's vote. Okay, 26 yes and 3 absent. Those appointments are approved. Item number 20, 19, claims, positions, and correspondence. We have none. That's good. 20, suggestions for future items, just what you had in your packet.
The only one I have is for Tim wants to come in May. That's the only one that I have right now.
Okay. There's nothing else. By unanimous consent, we'll adjourn at 10:39. Thanks, everybody. And remember, our next board meeting is February 19th at 9 a.m. February 19th.